Isn't it a breathtaking thing to consider that our ancestors, people we might dismiss as primitive, possessed a psychological and philosophical toolkit so sophisticated they could compress the entire dynamic of the cosmos, the very engine of existence, into a simple tale told around a fire? We, in our modern age, have libraries filled with theories on sociology, psychology, and political science. We have complex linguistic models to describe the world. Yet the Norse storytellers, with nothing but myth and metaphor, created a blueprint of reality so accurate, so resonant, that it speaks to us with perfect clarity across a chasm of 1,000 years. These are not fables for children. They are operating manuals for the human soul, and to read them correctly, we must first learn the language in which they were written. We must learn to see the world not through our modern eyes, but through the piercing, cold blue gaze of a Viking. To do that, we must begin by discarding one of our most fundamental and perhaps most misleading concepts, the binary of good versus evil. This was not the primary conflict that defined their universe. The Norse mind was forged in a landscape of brutal realities, of unforgiving winters, of sudden, violent storms, of a world where life was a constant, hard-won struggle against the encroaching dark and cold. Their cosmos reflected this reality. The Great War was not between righteousness and sin, but between two far more elemental and far more neutral forces, order and chaos. Think of order as a fortress. It is Asgard, the celestial stronghold of the Aesir gods. It is the realm of walls, of laws, of oaths, and contracts. It is the sacred enclosure, the space carved out of the wilderness where society can exist. Order is the hammer that builds, the word that binds, the shield that protects. It is the human and divine attempt to impose structure, meaning, and predictability onto a universe that inherently possesses none of these things. It is the fire in the hearth holding back the infinite night, a state of constant, vigilant effort. Chaos, then, is everything outside the fortress walls. It is the untamed wilderness. The primordial world of the Jotnar, the frost giants. Chaos is not evil in the way we conceive of it. It is not malicious by intent, but by its very nature. It is the crushing, indifferent force of the avalanche, the relentless, grinding power of the glacier, the fury of the winter storm that cares not for the lives of men. Chaos is the fundamental tendency of all things to decay, to dissolve, to return to a state of undifferentiated energy, and mediating between these two great poles, belonging to neither, yet walking in both, was Loki. He is not a devil, not a villain in the way we understand it. He is an agent of chaos, who lives within the very heart of order. He is the random variable, the system's perpetual stress test, the crack in the foundation that reveals whether the structure is truly sound. His actions, therefore, are not evil, they are injections of chaos into the system. And the story of how Thor got his hammer is the story of his first, and perhaps most consequential, test of Asgard's integrity. The story begins, as the most profound crises often do, not with the clash of armies, but with a quiet, transgressive act in the dead of night. Loki, moved by an impulse of pure, pointless malice, creeps into the chambers of Thor and his wife, the goddess Sif, and shears off her magnificent golden hair. On the surface, it is a cruel and childish prank. But to see it only as such is to be blind to the symbolic language of the myth. Sif's hair was not mere ornamentation. It was a dense, layered vessel of meaning. Firstly, And most famously, her hair was the living embodiment of the golden fields of grain, the promise of a full belly, the assurance that the brutal winter would give way to a bountiful summer. In shearing it, Loki performs an act of symbolic sterilization, an act of agricultural terrorism that says, your prosperity is fragile, but the violation runs deeper. For a woman in ancient Scandinavian society, her hair was a primary symbol of her honor, her dignity, and her personal power. To have it cut was an act of extreme humiliation, a stripping of identity. Loki, therefore, is not just insulting Thor. He is attacking the personhood of a goddess. And finally, hair was often believed to hold a kind of spiritual power, a connection to the life force itself. Loki's act, then, is a tripartite violation. He attacks Asgard's sustenance. He attacks Sif's honor. And he attacks her spirit. It is only when we understand this gravity that we can appreciate Thor's response. His rage is not petty jealousy. It is the explosive, righteous fury of the god of order when its core principles have been violated. It is the system's immune response kicking into overdrive, seeking to annihilate the chaotic infection that has breached its walls. And it is from this point of absolute desperation that the entire creative cascade of the story is set in motion. To save his own skin, Loki makes a desperate vow. He will travel to the realm of the dwarves, Svartalfheim, and procure a new head of hair for Sif. His journey is not a mere errand. It is a descent from Asgard, the world of the sky, of concepts, of air and light, into a realm that is its diametrical opposite. Imagine this world, a subterranean kingdom existing under unimaginable pressure, illuminated not by the sun, but by the fierce orange glow of riverine lava and the blinding white heat of the forge. The air here is thick with the metallic tang of cooling iron and the sharp scent of coal smoke, and its inhabitants, the dwarves, are ancient, powerful, and morally ambiguous beings. They are elemental materialists. They understand the secret language of stone and metal. While the gods of Asgard traffic in the abstrsat, in poetry, in law, in wisdom, the dwarves traffic in the tangible. They can take a formless idea and give it weight, an edge, and a lethal purpose. But their genius comes with a shadow of immense pride and deep-seated greed. Loki, a master of words and deception, is for once entering a world where he may be outmatched in the art of the deal, a journey into a foreign reality that adds a true sense of gravitas to what began as a simple attempt to correct a foolish mistake. And he succeeds brilliantly. He manipulates the sons of Ivaldi, who forge for him not one, but three incredible treasures. Sif's promised golden hair, the ship Skidbladnir, which can be folded to fit in a pocket, and the unerring spear Gungnir. The debt is paid. The crisis is averted. By any rational standard, this is the moment to return to Asgard. But Loki is not a creature of reason. He is a creature of ego. Flush with success, he makes a fatal error. He cannot simply win. He must be seen to win. He must not only succeed, but he must also rub his success in the faces of others. This is one of the most powerful emotional hot buttons, the compulsion not just for victory, but for dominance. He seeks out two other master craftsmen, the famously proud brothers Brokkr and Atri, and he weaponizes the treasures he holds, taunting them, belittling their craft, manufacturing a conflict where none existed, for no other reason than to gratify his own narcissism. In this single act, Loki gives us a perfect window into the unique nature of his role as a trickster. To truly understand him, it is useful to compare him to another famous trickster from a completely different world, Brer Rabbit from the folklore of the American South. Brer Rabbit is a creature born of powerlessness. His trickery is a tool of survival, a way to fight back against an unjust and dangerous system. His tricks are a punch upwards. Loki is the polar opposite. He is an insider, a being of immense power. His trickery is not born of necessity, it is born of privilege and cosmic boredom. He doesn't punch up to survive, he punches sideways to create chaos for its own sake. The wager he now makes with Brokkr and Atri is the ultimate expression of this impulse. Brokkr, his professional pride pushed to the breaking point, wagers that he and his brother can create 3 treasures that the gods will deem superior. The price? Loki's head. And Loki, blinded by his own cleverness, accepts the bet. The stakes have just escalated from restoring a goddess's honor to a literal matter of life and death, all because of a few boastful, needless words. The great contest begins, a battle not of swords, but of hammers and fire. And as this drama of creation and sabotage unfolds, it is crucial that we do not simply see the forging of 6 magical items. What is being created here is a symbolic arsenal, a physical manifestation of the core principles of divine, ordered power. The first treasures from the sons of Ivaldi were already profound. Sif's hair, a symbol of renewal, the ship Skidbladnir, the principle of perfect adaptability, and the spear Gungnir, the physical embodiment of an unbreakable promise, the idea that a word, once spoken with intent, becomes an unstoppable force. The treasures forged by Brokkr and Eitri, under Loki's constant harassment, are equally significant. The first is the golden ring, Draupnir, which magically creates 8 new rings every 9th night. This is not simply wealth. It is the very engine of cosmic kingship, the principle of a kingdom's power being a living, growing source of influence. The second is the golden bristled boar, Golinbursti, which shines so brightly it turns night into day. It is the embodiment of guidance and hope, the triumph of light over obscurity, the living compass that leads the way to victory. And finally, with Loki delivering his most vicious attack, comes the third creation, the one that requires the most heat, the most force, the most flawless concentration. The Great Warhammer. It is forged from the heart of a dying star, a weapon of almost unimaginable power. But because of Loki's sting, because of that single fleeting moment of broken rhythm, it emerges from the fire with a flaw. It emerges as Mjolnir. And here lies one of the most powerful lessons in all of mythology. The greatest weapon of order, its ultimate defense against the forces of chaos, is imperfect. Its defining characteristic is a flaw, the short handle. This is a stunningly counterintuitive and powerful statement on the nature of value. We are conditioned to pursue and prize perfection, but the Norse storytellers knew something deeper, that true, enduring power is often forged not in spite of imperfection, but because of it. The flaw does not diminish the hammer, it defines it. It is a permanent, physical reminder of the conflict that created it. It tells a story of struggle, of sabotage, and of prevailing despite a handicap. This is not just a mythological fancy. It is a fundamental pattern of progress in our own world. Look at the discovery of penicillin. Sir Alexander Fleming found it through a mistake, a petri dish contaminated with mold, a failure of sterile procedure, an imperfection in his lab. A less curious mind would have thrown it away, but Fleming saw that around this flaw, the bacteria had been destroyed. The value was not in the perfect experiment, but in the flawed one. Or consider Japan after the Second World War, a nation fundamentally broken, profoundly flawed. From that catastrophic imperfection, they were forced to completely reimagine their approach to creation, giving birth to philosophies like Kaizen, a focus on quality and efficiency born directly from the scarcity of their resources. Their prior devastation became the very crucible in which their future strength was forged. Mjolnir's short handle is a timeless lesson. It teaches us that our own scars, our own mistakes, our own supposed imperfections are not necessarily liabilities. They are part of our story, the evidence of the battles we have survived. The gods, in their wisdom, recognize this. They declare the flawed hammer and the other treasures of Brokkar and Atri to be the greater gifts. The wager is lost. Loki's hubris has led him, finally and inexorably, to the executioner's block. Brokkar the dwarf, his honor vindicated, steps forward with his knife, ready to claim his prize. And here, with no magic or muscle left, Loki falls back on his one true domain, the manipulation of language. He raises a hand and speaks, his voice calm and precise. "You have a right to my head." He concedes, "That was the wager. You may take it." "But," he adds, letting the word hang in the air, "the wager was for my head, and my head only. You have absolutely no right to one single inch of my neck." It is a breathtaking, maddeningly brilliant argument, a semantic trap of the highest order. He has not broken the rule of the agreement, he has used the very precision of the rule to make its fulfillment impossible. It is a profound statement on the architecture of civilization, showing that in any system of order, the final frontier of power lies not in physical force, but in the mastery of its rules, its contracts, its language. We see this echoed centuries later in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, where Portia saves Antonio not with a sword, but with a sentence, pointing out that the contract grants a pound of flesh, but not a single drop of blood. In both stories, the character is saved by demonstrating that language, when wielded with precision, can be a more formidable shield than any armor. The dwarves, masters of the material world, are rendered utterly powerless by a well-constructed argument. Their only recourse is to take an awl and sew Loki's mouth shut, a fitting, if temporary, punishment for a god whose greatest power has always been his words. And so, we step back from the details to view the entire magnificent tapestry. A petty, chaotic act of vandalism leads to a desperate quest, whose success breeds a fatal arrogance, which leads to a life-or-death wager, whose desperation inspires ingenious sabotage, which results in a flawed but transcendent masterpiece, the loss of which is sidestepped by linguistic genius. What is the final net result of all this mischief, all this chaos? The forces of order are now in possession of their most iconic, most powerful, and most legendary artifacts. Loki, the agent of chaos, has, through his selfish and destructive actions, become the single greatest benefactor and armorer of the very system he delights in undermining. The system has not been weakened by his attack. It has been immeasurably strengthened. In our modern lexicon, the philosopher Nassim Nicholas Taleb has a powerful concept for this. The system of Asgard is not merely resilient, able to withstand a shock and return to normal, it is antifragile. An antifragile system is one that feeds on volatility. It doesn't just survive shocks, it learns from them, adapts, and becomes stronger as a direct result of being stressed. Loki's chaos is the grit in the oyster that creates the pearl. And so this ancient Norse saga leaves us with a profound and deeply challenging piece of wisdom. It suggests that progress is not a peaceful, linear march directed by noble intentions, that our greatest assets are often forged in the fires of our worst mistakes. It forces us, finally, to turn our gaze inward, to look at the chaos in our own lives, the unexpected setbacks, the painful mistakes, the disruptive crises that knock us off our feet. And it leaves us with a lingering, transformative question. Are these simply misfortunes to be endured? Or are they the necessary, chaotic and deeply uncomfortable provocations from the universe, challenging us, forcing us to descend into our own forges to create the flawed, imperfect, and uniquely powerful tools we will need to become stronger than we were before.